Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is part 11, the final part of heavy training. Enjoy. We are loving? You asked, trying to keep the endeared smile in check. You didn't want her to feel like you were making light of her very serious conversation, so didn't want to chuckle or giggle at her cute words.
Yeah, you are looking at each other before and you are loving on each other,
she stated, looking up at you.
I don't really know what it is, and I don't know how to say it, but I liked how you two are looking at each other.
Oh, you said with a little smile. Do you like it when we're loving?
Yes, because it means that you want to be together and then I can be with you too,
she said, but it was almost like a question. Of course, he said with a smile. You'll always be with us too. Her face lit up and you could see an almost smile on her face again. Aizawa was feeling very much more relaxed about everything now and put his hand in his pocket to feel the ring box that had been sitting there all day. I don't know why I was being so irrational and rushing into this, he thought to himself with a small head shake and a smirk. Perhaps there was a part of me that was worried I would miss out on an opportunity to have Yin. He looked back to see you and Eri chatting together and let a small smile pull at his lips again. Yes, no need to rush. I want this relationship to work. Not just for Eri's sake, but for my own, he thought as he moved up the line and placed the orders for the food. Yin is a good woman, on all accounts. In no time he was sitting back at the table with you and Eri, and a small conversation ensued, mainly asking Eri about which animals she liked at the zoo.
But I still wanted to find the animal that left the big footprints. I think it might have been a cat,
she said with the most serious detective look on her face. She'd obviously been thinking about this for a while. Oh, I think you might be right, you said with a small glance at Aizawa, who winked at you to let you know that he still had something planned. Your heart jumped into your throat at his wink, and you had to look away for a second to compose yourself. The food arrived shortly after that, and you all dug in. It had been a big day, and you were starving. The food tasted amazing. While you were all eating, Aizawa secretly texted someone who he knew might be in the area, and they responded that they were and would come to the cafe shortly. Now all he had to do was wait. It was close to the time that you had finished eating that Eri was talking about something and using her hands to explain the story that she looked up past you and Aizawa and froze, her big eyes bulging as she stared at the being behind you. Following her gaze, you looked over your shoulder to see the chief of police. A large cat, yellow in appearance, and definitely fitting of the one who could have left the yellow paw prints. Aizawa turned and saw him too and stood up to greet him. Thank you for coming down, Aizawa said to him, and then turned to Eri. This is a very important man. Would you like to shake his hand? She nodded silently, still staring at the chief as she got off her chair and walked around to hold his hand.
It is you,
she said with delight when she saw his hands. He looked at Aizawa with confusion, and Aizawa shook his head slightly to indicate for him to not question her statement. Yes, the chief said to Eri, following Aizawa's orders. She was delighted and gave him a very small smile, similar to the one that she had done when she saw the lions. Aizawa pushed his hands into his pocket and smirked with approval while Eri continued to pat the chief's hands. After ample time had passed, Aizawa excused the chief and pulled his hand from his pocket to shake the man's hand. But in the process, the ring box was also pulled and fell out as the handshake exchange happened. It's as if time slowed down. The small blue box rotated slowly as it fell, catching your and Eri's eye as it tumbled to the ground. Aizawa too realised in that moment and quickly looked down to see where the box had fallen, but as luck would have it, it landed right next to Eri's foot, and she crouched down to pick it up.
Here, you dropped this,
she said politely as she held it up to him. By this time your brain had had time to connect the dots and pull up a match between this box and the typical look of a ring box, and you had frozen in place. Thank you, Eri, Aizawa said as he took it from her and glanced at you. The look on your face told him that you had indeed seen it and knew what it was, and he turned back to the chief to bid him farewell. It's unsure if the chief had seen the ring box or not, but he left fairly quickly, and then Aizawa turned back to you. You saw it, didn't you? He stated as he kept it hidden in hand. You nodded. We do not have to rush, he added, almost worried that you were going to say no now that you'd seen just how prepared he was. No, I don't feel rushed. I've already committed in my mind, you said back to him. Little Eri looked confused. What was this adult speak? Her little face looked towards you, and then back to Aizawa, then back to you, trying to read the situation. You had both gone very serious all of a sudden. Would you object if I proceeded? Aizawa asked, hedging his bets.
No, I wouldn't,
you replied, finding it hard to breathe now that your heart was doing the bongo drums on your lungs. Slowly he pulled the box back out of his pocket again and turned to Eri and then crouched down to her level. Eri, Yin and I would like to become legal guardians of you, he said as he showed her the small box. I intend to make Yin my wife, with you as our legal daughter. She blinked up at him, slowly putting the pieces together.
You'll be my mummy and my daddy?
She asked to confirm what she thought he was saying. Yes, I'm going to ask Yin to marry me, he said to her, with you overhearing everything.
Oh, now? Right now? Are you going to ask her?
Eri asked excitedly. He nodded. Yes, I have the ring prepared, he said as he tapped his finger on top of the box.
Oh, this is exciting. I think I'm feeling really happy,
she said with shining eyes. Do you mind if I ask Yin an important question now? Aizawa asked her.
You can ask her,
she said emphatically, nodding her little head enthusiastically. Aizawa cleared his throat and stood up, and then turned and walked over to you and got down on one knee, kneeling before you where you were seated. Yin, he started, looking up at you from under his heavy fringe, his bloodshot eyes capturing yours. I have known you for a little while now. When I'm with you, I feel a connection that I've not had with anyone else. He paused for a second. I know this is sudden, and we can talk about this later, but I would like to pledge my loyalty to you with this ring. He popped the case open and presented the ring inside. In due time, would you consider being my wife?
Yes,
you replied tearfully, stretching out a tenderly shaking hand for him to place the ring on. He plucked the ring from the box gently and held your ring finger in his more roughed-up hand, slipping the ring down the length of your finger till it settled at the base.
Oh,
you gushed, holding your hand up to look at it.
It's beautiful.
He stood up, and you stood too, reaching out and hugging him in front of Eri before turning your faces to each other for a kiss. Eri was spellbound watching this. The excitement bubbled up inside her until it showed plainly on her face.
Does this mean we can really be a family now?
She asked hopefully, drawing your and Aizawa's attention to herself. You broke from the kiss and looked down at her, still in Aizawa's embrace. Yes, it does, you said with a bright smile. All of a sudden her fears all melted away and a bright smile graced her face.
Yay!
She exclaimed, throwing her arms up in the air. Aizawa let go of you, and you bent down to lift her smiling self up.
Thank you,
she said excitedly over and over as she smiled and hugged you and Aizawa in turn. It was a moment they would all remember forever, in the happily ever after. And there you have it. That is the end of heavy training. I hope that was adequate for your future life with Aizawa and Eri as your child. Hopefully some of your dreams have been brought to fruition through this one-shot. Next week will be another one-shot. I will keep it a bit of a surprise for now. I'm still working on it. But it will continue to be My Hero Academia while Kenma is still running along on the other side. Thanks to those who are listening to that one. I hope you're enjoying that. And I'll see you next week.